Good morning, Mr. Papageorgiou. Thank you. I'm head of office at the General Secretariat for Energy and Mineral Resources. Mrs. Duku is the Secretary General. So the Ministry of Energy and Environment is competent for the strategy and
Recording in
renewable
progress.
energy sources development, as said by, and the actions to be followed have been said by the partnership agreement. And now I will switch my presentation to English. And I will share my screen as well. My presentation will focus on the legal framework and how this evolves at this moment. Okay, I'll share my screen.
I hope you can all. You must. Okay, we are all okay. The presentation is online. Okay, thank you. So, my name is Marinos, head of office in the Secretariat General for Energy and Mineral Resources, and I will do a brief presentation of the development of the regulatory framework for offshore wind development in Greece. Mr. Skatos briefly mentioned that earlier on. I will try to be as brief as possible because we are actually running out of time. So the main issue in the framework stems from the big picture. As you may know, Greece is has formulated already a comprehensive framework for offshore wind based on the National Energy and Climate Plan. We wanted to make sure we got it right, so we did all the usual steps necessary, best practices, getting in touch with European companies, the Commission. We had a lot to do, so we are in a bit of a hurry. So. As you know, the major first step of the Greek energy system is moving away from coal, lignite specifically. So, as we all have already said in the NECP, we will move away from from lignite-fired power plants by 2023, all but one power plants. The last lignite plant will be decommissioned, or rather, use a different fuel by 2028. At the same time, we have declared and we aim to more than double the installed capacity of renewables, both solar and wind and all other technologies. So we are aiming at more than 19 gigawatts installed by 2030. So this new capacity will require about 9 billion euros in the actual power generation and another 5 billion euros in the required infrastructure, interconnections, networks, etc. So this is a major transition that we see not only as an obligation, but as an opportunity. We are well on track to achieve our 2030 targets. We have already achieved our 2020 targets quite easily, if I may say so. So we think that from the signals that we're getting from the market as well, we are well on track. The pipeline of projects submitted and that we are aware of covers the targets of Greece of 2030 by a factor of 10. So even 1/10 of these projects comes to be realized, we are right on track. So we realize that offshore wind is a very promising technology, and according to the studies that we've seen, the levelized cost of floating offshore in Greece will be about 76 euros per megawatt hour in 2030. while it will be possibly down to 46 euros by 2050. Bloomberg recently predicted that new offshore wind will be directly competitive with fossil fuels as early as 2025. Incidentally, in the same year, solar PVs is scheduled or foreseen to be directly competitive in the market. So this is a huge financial opportunity that is well suited with the geographical particularities of Greece, of our country. So this is a choice that we make today, that we have made already today, and will show its benefits in the long term come 2030 and 2050. And this is a strategic committee for Greece regarding its energy future. So we plan to capitalize on the opportunities offered by this technology and to give a strong signal that we are seriously invested in this offshore wind technology and investments. To achieve this, we need a modern, comprehensive, and reliable legal framework. But more than that, we need to have real projects, wind offshore or anything else. This is where the market actually comes in, the Commission and the programs that can fund all this. So in the last few months, we have studied the approaches taken by other countries, the technologies in Europe and beyond. We have talked with the industry and collected various opinions, sometimes diverging or quite opposite one to another. We have worked closely with the Hellenic Wind Association, the European Commission, obviously, and we have studied quite closely the European Commission's offshore renewable energy strategy and the Council's conclusions on fostering European cooperation on offshore and other renewable energies. To synthesize all of this, we want to talk to experts and discuss various options on the table with companies invested in this market. We are obviously very aware of the potential benefits of offshore wind technology, both floating and fixed bottom. This is something that has to do with the particularities of Greece, the morphology, the geographical position, the potential, the wind potential in certain areas. So a key priority for the ministry for early 2021 is to formulate a comprehensive legal and regulatory framework for offshore wind, which has been drafted and will be publicly available for consultation, hopefully within Q2 is actually at the end, but within the next few days. So in drafting the framework, we studied the European Commission's the strategic document. We also took notice of best practices, and we are working closely, like I said, with all key stakeholders in this area of technologies. We have to make a few key design choices in this framework, for this framework to be complete and as best as possible. The three main pillars are the zoning and permitting, a major issue in Greece, the interconnections and interconnectivity of the plants and the grid, and obviously the remuneration of the investors. If we go to the first pillar, a brief overview, the permitting and zoning. We are currently considering two different routes. I will briefly go over the most likely. State control entity will pre-screen large areas, sea areas, and identify any areas without any exclusion criteria, i.e. areas that are applicable and selectable for these installations. The state will conclude the SEAs, the strategic environmental assessments, to ensure that everything is okay and these areas are suitable. The investors will be able to select smaller sub-regions in these areas to plan their investment and proceed with permits. And there will be an option to allow some privately identified locations to be solicited to the state-controlled entity. But this soliciting investor will have to compete with others for the rights to the location if it's approved, obviously, by the state-controlled entity. The interconnection is the second major pillar. The TSO will obviously play a lead role in the design, licensing, and implementation of the interconnection. The connection costs will be allocated to the investor in a clear, transparent, and predictable way. And the option for investors to be able to select private contractors to plan and execute the subsea part of the interconnection is examined. There are some issues that need to be taken care of, but it's actually the most logical option. Finally, the remuneration scheme, which is where it all boils down to. The investors will be remunerated through a sliding premium. It's something, sort of a form of contract for differences in prices. The investors will compete in auctions, obviously, to secure their price, the strike price. Auctions will be technology specific, only between, in our case, offshore wind producers. But projects may be eligible at a later stage to compete in technology agnostic auctions with a premium on the price of onshore assets to cover the added costs, obviously. This is an overview of the two design options that I've discussed. A possible two ways of doing things, to put it simply. And I'm concluding with the roadmap. The first two steps have been completed. Like I mentioned earlier, we finished, or we are finishing, the draft law that will cover all of what I've already said. The law will be submitted. We want it to be submitted June or July, as we speak. Unfortunately, it might be a bit delayed. So both December 21, which was the first step for investors to, scout the areas, and December 22 for the actual first auction, might also be slightly delayed, but not by a lot, we hope. So this was a very brief and fast overview of the current state of play. Thank you for your attention, and we remain at your disposal for any additional information. Thank you.